Iraj, I want to sort of go back to something that has come up quite a bit, and that's about the dangers and also sometimes the necessities in terms of spending one's way out of a crisis, right? Or what in the USA they called quantitative, economics, and I think it was Paul Krugman, who was actually making the case in the US that that this idea that deficits are necessarily detrimental or negative. I mean, his arguments are that as long as your GDP is growing at a high enough rate, your deficits just almost automatically melt away. Now, I mean, that may be the case in an economy like the USA. Just maybe share with us what are some of the dangers that we face here in that sort of situation, because we're going to have to spend some money and throw some money at these problems as we emerge out of this crisis.
Yeah, so I think the quantitative easing is really a possibility for currencies that act and they have the stature globally to be some kind of reserve currency. The most prominent one, obviously, is the United States dollar, followed by euro and a bit of pound and a bit of yen. Other than that, other countries have very limited, if any, capacity to do quantitative easing without getting into trouble. So if governments spend, it's like people, families, individuals incurring debt. Debt is not a bad thing if you use it for productive and capacity building. As a student, most of us take loans. And why do the banks lend us? Because they know that in 3, 4, 5 years' time, we're going to graduate, we're going to have a job, we're going to have an income, we're going to pay it back. So debt is not a bad thing at all, provided debt is used to build production capacity. But as I was saying earlier on, at the moment, governments are incurring debt, whether they are printing money or they're issuing bonds and borrowing from other people. The reality is that they're incurring debt, which means they are creating liability for future generations. We have to do it, we've got to do it. Of course, our assumption is that it will be done cleanly and productively. But at the same time, we got to build the income generating capacity, the production capacity, the tax base, so that in 10 years' time, when these government bonds come due, they can be serviced. And that is my concern. My concern is that we are not paying enough attention to that. And if we don't, well, a number of things will happen. First of all, governments will become less and less able. They will degenerate to incapable states or failed states. And then nations will become denuded of their high skilled resources or highly competent individuals who will look around and say, well, I really don't want to live in this society. Let me seek other opportunities elsewhere. So you begin to create a systemic, internal systemic pushing away capacity. And the more capacity you lose, the more capable you are of paying back the debt that you've created. You end up as a highly indebted nation, which we have a few of them around of the globe. Argentina is a good example. When 60 years ago was one of the top performing per capita economies in the world. And today they remain a highly indebted and stuck in low growth type of high debt, low growth. On the continent, we have examples. In Asia, we have examples. So it's a very predictable scenario. So I agree with Paul Krugman that debt and deficit, we shouldn't worry about it outside the context of what happens to the economy. I would be very critical of a corporate that is high generating income and has got no debt on its balance sheet because it's not running the business efficiently. Efficiency requires that your income generation capacity and your debt servicing capacity are in some kind of sync. If either of them is out of sync, you are inefficient. And nations that borrow without paying attention to creating debt service capacity, they will become inefficient and ultimately failed states.
I mean, that's a nice sort of segue, Iraj, into, is this an opportunity for us to really take bold decisions in relation to our state-owned enterprises?
Absolutely. I mean, we couldn't, as I said, we mustn't waste, I think you said it, we mustn't waste this fantastic and an unfortunate crisis. Our state enterprises need to be redefined. Some of them should be closed down without second thought. Some of them should be redefined and expanded. For example, if we want to rebuild our cities, we need development finance institutions that are capable of financing large and long dated, meaning 20, 30, 40-year infrastructure projects. Here, the like of Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA, would be a good institution to rebuild and refocus its institutions. If you want to restructure our economy, to concentrate the highly concentrated industries, you need an institution like the IDC to be recapacitated. It has lost a lot of its capacity. It needs to be recapacitated, and its mission or business mandate need to be redefined. If we want to grow our agriculture and agri-processing, we need a land bank that is not bankrupt. It's a land bank that is capable and able, both from a balance sheet point of view as well as from a capability, human skills point of view, to give support, short, medium, long-term support for building our agriculture and agro-processing. And I can go on and on and on. But then we have over 700 state-owned enterprises. Well, they got to be shut down. Some of them are just become a platform for siphoning money out, and they do nothing other than wasting money. So we need to really rethink our public sector, because no country can rise to the challenges that we face without a capable state. We know we've put this term for 30 years on every policy that I have ever read, government policy, and yet nobody does anything. Presidents come, presidents go, the state goes further down, not up. So state-owned enterprises on their own, without a capable state, are not going to do the job, Russell. The two are intrinsically and systemically linked, and we need to think about a capable public sector that is set to serve the nation, not to serve political missions or siphon money out.